Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Doctor Who, as well as the season finale of Class, and/or Series 1 finale, depending on how you want to look at it. Whichever one's, your preferred way of approaching it. But nevertheless, like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So, for example, if you want to hear what I had to say about this week's episode of Doctor Who, you can skip to what I had to say about the season finale of Class. But the first thing we're going to talk about is this week's episode of Doctor Who. A very, very good episode where obviously we're picking up where last week's episode left off with the whole, monks, getting the planet from Bill. And I love it's a hard cut to 6 months later. Basically, the monks have brainwashed everyone into believing that they've been here. Every monumentous moment of human history, they've been there, they've helped you, they've been here by your side all along, we've always coexisted. And it's something kind of interesting that Nardo kind of explains later on. It's why, go through all that, why do all that? It's because it's a lot easier to control someone when they thought oh, this is the way things have always been, so this is kind of things as normal. So we've lived this way for so long throughout all of our history, why fight it now? So it kind of leaves people very submissive. I mean, the whole situation is fascinating because I wasn't expecting that. I thought it was going to be a transition of the Doctor trying to fight. It's no. I mean, the Doctor later on we end up finding out has been trying to fight this, but it's for 6 months he's been planning. But it's to think that such a large scale thing would happen. I was wondering because they were so oh, we'll help you, but all you're going to have to do is give us your consent. And it's once again, last episode brought up, it's we don't know what that consent meant. That was what the Doctor was wondering about. You don't know what that means. You're selling your planet. In this particular case, I mean, something the Doctor kind of threw in Bill's face, kind of yeah, you kind of agreed to all this to save my eyes and stuff like that, but I never told, I told you explicitly not to do it, because the fact of the matter is you gave up so much. You gave up your free will, you gave up your planet, you gave up your history, everything that's you is kind of melded, and it's oh yeah, everything you have is thanks to them because they were always there by your side, almost subtracting from the great things that humanity has been able to accomplish on their own and everything. It was just fascinating to me because they did kind of bring it up last episode, how we're going to rule. Obviously it's to rule by love, not fear, and by basically brainwashing you into loving us. There are points where it's oh, there's people who rebel against us. They're kind of against this utopia we're building. So it's we're going to kill them, and it's people are cheering yeah, they're trying to destroy this utopia we have built and everything because everyone's so swept up in it. Some people are able to the memory stuff isn't completely setting in for some people, and those people are considered resistors. One of those being Bill. Bill was able to fight it for such a long time, mainly because she had this whole situation with her mom where basically to kind of keep her mind sane, to keep her because obviously dealing with it all on her own because Nardo wasn't there and the Doctor wasn't there. It was kind of she had to do it all on her own, and so she needed a little help. So she kind of created a figment of her mom. Now, she never knew her mom, but based on the pictures and stuff, she tries to picture this is who my mom is, and she has conversations with her. Sounds a little nutty, but at the same time, it's it's sweet because it's it's actually what helped her in the long run. I mean, actually, it's what helped save the day too, because of that pure memory of a love for a parent, because that's what this is all started by. Because it's oh, you need consent that's not of impure thoughts or ulterior motives, just a pure notion of love. I mean, that's why this all set in motion, because she cared about the Doctor, and that was her main reason for giving consent in the first place. So, but I wasn't sold on the whole Doctor situation. At first, I was kind of there was a part of me that's kind of I don't know, I know this is all some trick or something like that, but Bill's oh, no, you got some plan. It's no, she tried to use the code words on me, call the monks and everything. She's she really lost hope to the point she pointed a gun at him and everything, and he's whoa, come on, Bill. And then she actually shot him, and then he starts regenerating and everything. I'm holy crap. I was wait, is this really? And he's good job, Bill. I was what? I was I had a feeling that was faked, but the fact is he went that extra step and even faked him almost starting his regeneration process, which to me is obviously you're putting on that spectacle for Bill. Has he like he hasn't brought that up in the show like about regeneration, because anytime that's ever come up, he's like he kind of worms his way around the subject. So either that or Bill like maybe in between episodes or something, he's explained it to Bill like, yeah, my whole regenerate, like my species regenerates or something like that. Because it blows my mind, because it's like, why would you do that? Because it's like, I mean, maybe, you know, for Naruto and the others, because it's more of a spectacle. Because obviously if like the monks were really paying attention, then I was like, why would you need that like show? Like, I mean, because obviously he reveals it to her immediately afterwards, so obviously it couldn't be the monk. I guess it just adds more flair to it, I guess is what the whole point of it is. It wouldn't do, you know, I guess he probably ran through it a few times and was like, oh, this is going, you know, be the stinger. But once again, it's like, I mean, Bill didn't question it neither. Like, what was that supposed to represent or anything like that? But I don't know. But nevertheless, I still appreciate the extra step to kind of be like, holy crap, this is real. It's like, wow, that was good. And obviously another big part of the episode was obviously like the doctor going to Missy for help, going like, oh, hey, Bill, meet Missy, Missy, meet Bill. And it's like the introduction, you know, obviously it's not what the doctor wanted, but obviously we, you know, and he knew it would have to come down to this, because Missy, I did appreciate the line of like, he's like, have you ever come across the monks before? She's like, of course. You know, I've had my own adventures. My life doesn't just revolve around you. It's kind of like the way you kind of get obsessive sometimes, you know. I know the doctor's your best friend and everything, your longtime best friend and everything, but it's like, yeah, more time than often than not, seems like it does revolve around him. But it does kind of put the question in your head is like, what has Missy done? Like, still, once again, like, what has she? I'm sure she's done some bad stuff, but it's like we still don't clear cut know what it is that led to this moment of her being captured, like being almost executed and everything. I guess it's like just all the things she's done, like all of it, like kind of building up and being charged with that. I guess that's in the long run. So I guess at some point she just finally got caught or whatever. Now, unless it was like the doctor that helped catch her or something. I mean, that hasn't come up yet, but I mean, that's a possibility. But nevertheless, I did appreciate kind of that little bit of a cat and mouse game between the doctor and Missy. She's like, oh, this might help. Oh, you're getting cold. Oh, you're freezing. Oh, I'm bored. It's like, oh, you're hot. Oh, you're burning. You're exploding. It's kind of like, I know it's kind of a different dynamic to kind of pull from, but it very like, at least to me, I feel like there's remnants of like the Doctor and River when that, like that back and forth is what it kind of reminds me of. And so, I don't know. I mean, that's immediately where my mind went, but I'm sure, like, obviously some people are like, oh, it's nothing. It's just, I mean, because I don't want to just trample on it and be like, oh, this is a copy of, like, what happened between, you know, River and the Doctor. I mean, it's like, I mean, to be fair, like, obviously the Doctor's known Missy a lot longer, obviously back when she was known as the Master. Which then again, it's like, considering the whole back and forth between him and Rivers, it's like, I mean, maybe technically he's actually known River. Semantics, right? Who cares? But, and then it comes out that basically, like, obviously, like, they need consent. Like, this is all started, the way they control people's brains and everything is through anchoring to the person who gave consent. In this case, Bill. Then they build up all these statues and everything to kind of boost the signal and kind of spread it to everyone. And that's how they keep the signal continuous. And it's like, oh, yeah, awesome. So how do we deal with it? It's like, well, you got to kill the person that they anchor to. Oh, wait, what? Excuse me? It's like, yeah, you have to kill them. It's the only way to shut it down. Even at one point, Misty's like, oh, that's how it's always run. Because the fact of the matter is, it's a bloodline thing. So if you don't, like, stop it, like, even, you know, if that person can live a normal life, sure, but it will be passed down to their child or future generations. It's like, yeah, they do it for long periods of time. And the Doctor's like, why would they keep doing that? It's such a flawed method of doing things. Because it's like, well, the fact of the matter is, if it's like this, couldn't you find a different means of going about it? Because it's like, well, if you find out like over and over again, the people connected to these bloodlines are getting killed, your anchors are getting killed, and you're losing your control over their planet, like, wouldn't that cross your mind to not do that anymore? But I guess it's like such a situation that basically it's like, oh, you learn and you live. And in this particular situation, the person they ended up kind of, I guess one of the people they knew they relied on was Bill. And it's something Bill commented on too. It's like, they know they got it made in the shade, because obviously with each new situation, even though it happened over and over again, they learned more and more. So they were probably a little more open about who they were going to get, like whose consent they were going to receive. In this case, they received Bill's, and Bill will be protected by the Doctor because the Doctor would never want Bill dead. So that means that they can maintain their power and everything, which I love. Just kind of Missy kind of being bad and all, just like the moment Bill's like, I'm the anchor, she's like, ooh, awkward. Because obviously this whole situation is her trying to be a good guy and everything, which the doctor's not fine with. He's like, no, I'm not going to sacrifice Bill. You don't sacrifice people, as a good guy. Which she's like, the fact is, I'm telling you this is proof that I'm trying to be a better person. Because she's like, the fact of the matter is, you think this vault could really hold me? The fact is, I'm here this entire time. It's showing you that I am giving this whole rehabilitation situation a try. So basically even going as far as saying that if the doctor does what he wants to, like his whole sensibilities and stuff like that, is very vain and selfish, because it's like you're putting your feelings first above the people of Earth. Like, that you protect these humans, but the fact of the matter is you're not willing to sacrifice this one human that you care so much for. It's like, she's like, if you ever think of me ever becoming like that, we'll be waiting a very, very long time. But, obviously later on, I also really appreciated how, like, they got around, like, okay, the closer we get to the centerfold of this whole situation is, like, the more it'll mess with people's brains. It'll kind of start trying to trick you into believing that, this is all, like, true, that the monks are true and everything. So everything, this history they're lying to you about, that the lie is true. And so they put on like headphones and they have cassettes of Bill telling them, remind him, he's like, no, blocking out, like, kind of like, I guess you could say, I mean, obviously it hits on a brainwave level, but it's like it hits on like waves. So waves that enter through the ears that, are being omitted from the statues and whatnot. So they were able to block it with playing like Bill's voice saying like, no, this is a lie, kind of getting them to believe the truth. I felt so bad for that one dude who ended up getting his destroyed, but then like Nardo kind of pinched his neck. It's like, oh man, it's so cool. I learned this technique. It's pretty awesome. Sadly, I can't do it on my other hand. It's such a shame. It's just like, oh yeah, right. Let's get on to it. I did like that slow-mo of him jumping away from the lightning, which is kind of cool how they fight. They fight shooting out lightning, but they also create that little, like, it almost looks like, I don't know, webbing almost. Like, I know that's probably not the right substance to really say, but it's like that little shield they make. It seemed like it starts off almost like energy, but then it turns into a solid, like, almost like Spider-Man's web, like if he made his webbing into a shield. That's what it kind of looked like to me, but I mean, that's at least how I was looking at it. Because obviously the plan is, hey, let's like put my brain, the doctor's brain there, and like, jack it into this like whole sophisticated system so that I can kind of get the truth back to the world. He's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, while I'm doing that, might as well get rid of racism as well as people talking during movies, because your kind likes doing that. I thought that was kind of cool. But I was actually kind of a little worried when it kind of didn't work out for the doctor, but it's like, because at first I was like, oh, is this supposed to, like, obviously you see the pictures and everything all being turned into the monks and everything. So I was like, oh, is this supposed to represent them taking over his mind? Like, isn't that extremely bad? Because now they're implanting themselves in every aspect of his life. He's over 2,000 years. So for every 2,000 years, they're like implanting himself. So he's even more dedicated. Turned out it didn't submit in itself like that. I mean, granted, if he had a normal brain, it would have overloaded it. I mean, obviously they're like, yeah, second overload will kill you, but I guess maybe that's what protected him originally. I mean, but granted, when you actually think about it, it's actually very similar to the Clara situation. But granted, he doesn't remember that. But Clara kind of implanted herself in every aspect of the doctor's life. Like, his impossible girl, I guess, is what that way he originally called her? Yeah. Once again, forgive me. It's been a while since I've seen like anything prior to season 9, it's been a while. But as I brought up earlier, like, the one that could stop it is Bill, because of her one memory of her mom and everything. Because even the doctor's like, oh yeah, the fact of the matter is, like, I brought these pictures of your mom. I thought it was just me being sentimental, but it's like, no, me bringing your mom, pictures of your mom and everything would end up eventually saving the world. Almost kind of giving himself a pat on the back, like, man, I'm so smart. Like, I didn't even realize ahead of time, like, but more so than anything, he gave major props to Bill too for, like, because of that pure, unadulterated, like, I don't know if unadulterated would be the right word there, but just like that love. That in its purest form is enough to kind of overload and fight back against the monks. And it kind of affects everyone's minds. It's like, the fact is, it fills them up, to like not give up and kind of stand up and fight back. So this makes you wonder what exactly went down like 6 months ago, like at the end of the last episode, where it's like, last time we saw the doctor was like the lab was blowing up and everything. and he was with the scientist from last episode, but I wonder will we be crossing paths with her anytime in the future. I get the feeling because the doctor made such a point of being like, oh, you're so brilliant and everything. What are you doing after this? So it's like, maybe we'll cross paths with her later. But I find it very fascinating that obviously, like, no one remembers anything that happened. Just because once the monks left, they took that memory with them, and the doctor's just kind of like, oh, that's you humans for you. You forget stuff, and you're bound to just, make those same mistakes again, bound to repeat history. And then Bill's kind of like, well, why do you care about humans so much? And he's like, oh, because there's people like you. People like you are enough to make me care about an entire species. Which is like, this is so sweet, because it's like, oh, Bill, you're the reason why he tolerates humans at all. The rest of them, because that was awfully sweet. And thing too, I was also thinking about obviously everything's got to go full circle. Like I brought it up before, like obviously that wasn't I don't know, because prior to this, I thought that it was a different doctor that went back in time. Like I thought it was a doctor from the end of the season who had gone back in time, got those pictures for Bill of her mom. I thought that was him because he knew like, oh, I'm gonna have to need to do this to complete the cycle because this is going to help Bill save the world later on. That's what I was thinking. Like obviously not to that extent, but I was thinking like when I was watching this episode, but now I don't think about it. It's like, no, because this doctor admitted that, hey, I got those photos for you. So it's like, no, that's not how that works. I mean, maybe he goes back in time. No, because that'd be a paradox and everything. I don't know. Maybe it just serendipity is kind of all that there is to it, I guess. But I still feel like there's gotta be a lot more to that when it comes to Bill's mom. Obviously, it was setting it up for just her mom being the key to save everyone in the world. So I know, I kept getting this inkling. I don't think it's true, but I kept getting this feeling like I saw the actress who played her mom. There's someone I thought it was, but I'm pretty sure it's not them. The person I was thinking it was, I was thinking like, oh, is that the actress who played Annie from the British Being Human? But I'm pretty sure that's not. But that's what instinctually first went through my mind. So I wonder would she be her mom kind of pop up any time going forward or not. I mean, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But like I said, overall, like a very, very good episode. I wasn't expecting things to kind of turn out the way they did. And also the whole Missy situation, like, oh yeah, like she's actually changing. At first I was like, oh, by the time we get to the end of this, like, she's gonna be BSing it, and it's like, and then she starts crying and everything. I'm like, she's pulling a leg, she's pulling your leg, doctor. But it's like, no, she's like, I'm remembering the names of everyone I ever killed. Like, I never thought I would actually do it. She's like, you never told me being good would involve this. And it's like, she is legitimately trying. I mean, the thing of the matter is, you never know. With evil geniuses, there's no telling, like, how far manipulation can go. I mean, who knows? Maybe something will push her to go back to being her bad self. I mean, the fact of the matter is, she did ask for certain things from the doctor as payment for helping save the world and everything, which the doctor was like, no, the fact of the matter is, shouldn't, being good and everything, you should just want to help save a planet, not just being worried about you getting something. But Bill did say, okay, so I'd assume, like, that was him giving her everything. I mean, granted, we didn't see the pony that she wanted, so that was kind of interesting. But obviously, you're not quite believing it, but at the same time, you want to, because it's like, it does seem like you're actually trying. You're being remorseful in something you've never been in the past. You've done some crappy things in the past, but you're just kind of like, whatever. So, very interested to see where that storyline goes about that, so. And what's the next adventure waiting for the Doctor? I appreciate that storyline playing out the way it did. This has been like a 3-episode arc storyline. That doesn't come up that often. Has that ever come up before? Like, obviously, like, season-wide, like, story arcs, sure, but it's like, not unless this ends up tying into something bigger. I mean, sure, the Missy aspects of it, but just the storyline about the monks. I feel like, I don't think a storyline has ever extended that far across multiple, like, over a season now. So usually it's like, if there's anything, it's like 2-parters. Like, technically this was a 3-parter. Not unless the first part of it with the whole simulation doesn't count, but it's all one story, so I feel like it should. Maybe there is, and I'm just like blanking on it. I mean, really at the end of the day, it's not important. It's just interesting to me, that's all. But very excited to see what goes on in next week's episode. And now moving on to the season finale of Class, and once again, and/or the Series 1 finale of Glass. Once again, however you want to refer to it as. A very fantastic finale. It was so good. Obviously, things did not go down the way I thought they were, but obviously going to break things down. Obviously, the Shadowkin are back. They're basically popping in and out of exist. Like, they're able to kind of slip through all these different cracks that have kind of popped up because of what the governors have done. Like, because the fact is, Charlie asked, he's like, what? He asked the headmistress, like, whoa. This is actually because of you. It's because something you did. I was like, so immediately my brain goes, wait, is this because of everything that happened last episode trying to get Quill, the Arn out of Quill's brain, that metaphysical device, bouncing him like around like that? Was that the ramifications from that? Or is it something else that the governors are doing? Like, obviously, well, I'll get to that later because I just want to deal with that in its own right. But, because basically they put up the mentality that like, they put out there that like, the headmistress is like, the fact of the matter is we manage time and everything we're doing is preparation for something known as the arrival and whatnot. But that, like I said, I'll kind of go into that all of it later on. Obviously, the Shadow King are here, more specifically the Shadow King, and he starts killing people. First he kills Ram's dad. Then he kills Tanya's mom, goes after her brothers. Luckily, Quinn kicks some ass. Even pregnant, she's still a badass. Which in itself is an interesting thing because the fact of the matter is, and it's something Quinn kind of like obviously comments on and everything. The fact of the matter is she's pregnant. Usually what happens is they have a litter and that litter will obviously kill the mom, eat them for nutrients and everything. It's like that way, the way Quill puts it, it's kind of like, passing that strength on to the next generation essentially. But she kind of points out, she feels her stomach and she's like, I only have one. So maybe that's because Balin being what he is, maybe it canceled out what Quill has. And another part of my brain immediately goes, well, maybe it's because she already has a litter of her own, whether she realizes it or not. Like, she has the kids. Now, she hasn't always been that very attentive and caring about the kids, but we saw a softer side to her in this episode. Not just all about killing and revenge. Like, no, she showed her softer side when it came to Tanya, like, crying about her mom being dead, and like she was consoling her, like holding on to her, just not really saying anything. And it's like you saw a softer side to her, and immediately that happened. I was like, well, there's your litter right there, Quill. I mean, whether she'll really think of them like that going forward or not, I mean, that's where my mindset's at. But obviously, this brings up the question again. We need to use the Cabinet of Souls. Everyone wants to use it. Tanya wants to use it. Ram wants to use it. The only people that don't want to use it are Matthias, April, and Charlie having like reservations about doing this. Because once again, if we wipe out an entire species, what makes us any better than them? Which Ram is like, it does make us better than them. The fact is, they killed my dad. In Tanya's case, it's like they killed my mom. If we don't kill them, my brothers will never be safe. They'll be running for the rest of their life. It's like everyone we care about will be targets and everything. In Charlie's case, Matthias. In April's case, her mom. I mean, just that got me good, dude. I was like, dude, there's no way. I was like, wow, they killed his dad. I mean, because obviously, like, I should know it had to be something drastic that ends up bringing this group back together. Because, like, it's been 6 days since what went down in that detention room. And, like, they have not really talked to each other. They kind of cut ties with each other. The only two that were really interacting was Charlie and April. I mean, it's bad enough, like, multiple occasions for Ram got it hard this episode because, like, for one, it's like you lost your dad, you already lost Rachel, then Tanya, she lost her dad before, and now she's lost her mom too. Now her and her brothers are on their own. Not less something. I mean, there's no like rewinding that, like, you know, like taking that back is like that. That's some like. Because I went into the show hearing, like, seeing that as one line. It's like, yeah, one thing people, like, love about this show is the fact is it has such a dark tone to it. I was like, killing parents, like, this show isn't afraid to kill characters off. Like, you know, Doctor Who kills characters, but, like, not, like, to this extent, like, to this, I don't know. It's just, it's different. It's got a much different tone than, like, Doctor Who. But once again, it's all about using the Cabinet of Souls, which Charlie doesn't want to do. Because he's always still holding on to that hope. For one, doesn't want to use it to massacre another species because of what that just means. He can't bring himself to do that. And also because he hopes on some way, keeping them around long enough, he'll be able to revive his people is what he's hoping for. Kind of going back to it really quickly. We have the whole Tanya and Quill thing of this episode. Like, she's even training Tanya how to fight and everything, which Tanya kind of points out, like, okay, why are you being so kind and everything? The fact of the matter is, you're normally like tough and everything. The moment I need you to be tough, you're up here being kind-hearted and everything. She's like, just because I'm pregnant doesn't mean I'm not still as badass I was before. But you can tell she isn't necessarily the same person. The fact is that she's even entertaining the idea. Yes, granted, she wants Tanya's help with the whole Cabinet of Souls situation is the reason why she's doing this, but it also seems like she wants to help her because she's like, I know that position and what it means to have to lose everyone that, you know, to lose people that you care about and everything. So it's understandable. Like, she's like, she knows, like, hey, you need to take that. Don't basically kind of do what April kind of has done. Like, don't let it break you. Let it, you know, motivate you to do something, you know? I mean, and it kind of goes back to it again. Like, what does this mean going forward, you know, using the Cabinet of Souls? It's like, Charlie, out of any one of you would want to use it more so than anything. He lost everything. And it's like, but no one, like, I feel like everyone wasn't willing to really look at it like that, because obviously Charlie's affected with the shadow. Him using the Cabinet of Souls will mean not only killing the Shadow King, but also himself and April, which once again, it's not all about, it's also about wiping out an entire species. Can you live with that? Which is like, I mean, it's understandable. You both, like both him and Tanya, you know, Ram and Tanya have lost people that they care about. In Tanya's case, she has now lost both of her parents. Especially, you know, it's got to hear it even more after that whole situation with that creature that pretended to be her dad and everything. I was like, oh yeah, like, you know, just touch my, like, the whole situation. So it's like, that's gotta be hard, even, you know, after dealing with that situation and finally having to say goodbye to her dad and now having to say goodbye to her mom in the most messed up way. Obviously, it finally did come down to Charlie having to use the Cabinet of Souls because it was the only way, especially when they infected the shadows of everyone on Earth. It's like, go ahead and do that. But the moment you do that, everyone will die the moment you use the Cabinet of Souls. It's kind of an insurance policy. And then also him killing April. Didn't see that come out. I was like, no, because the whole thing is like, we'll find another way. We'll find another way. Well, there's no time to find another way. And Charlie's like, please don't make me do this. And April's like, you have to do this. Like, the fact of the matter is, like, she's like, because the moment she said the words, set me free, I think Charlie knew then, like, that's what she was saying, like, kill me. It's the only way to stop this because he's the king and everything. Because he wants April, because it's like, if he can keep that other part of his heart near him, he'll be in complete control. He won't have to worry about being controlled by April anymore. So, but then Charlie ends up pulling the trigger and killing April, and then Ram shows up just in time because he received her message. It's like, Ram admitted, like, even after these 6 days, even with the way things left off, I still love you. I never stopped loving you. And April's like, I was always afraid to admit to you that I love you. You know, she was, you know, and you can't blame it. Just like, it's a situation of like, fear is a motivator that kind of keeps you from putting yourself out there. You know, it's just like, you know, there's a lot of stuff with April that obviously she's very reserved when it comes to that type of thing, just because she's just scared of what it means to put herself out there, to put her heart out there like that. But she's like, no more. I should have told you before. I love you. You know, I've stayed loving you as much as, you know, you've stayed loving me, you know, so. But Charlie ends up, you know, having to shoot April. Once again, third time this episode. I mean, the third time for Ram that kind of like get it hard. Because it's like, not only, this is your second girlfriend you see get shot, or not shot, killed in front of you. Plus you just lost your dad that day too. That's a lot on someone's shoulders. And then Charlie gets all of the Shadow King because he becomes the new king and gets them to leave the, everyone's bodies, and then he activates the cabinet, and it looks badass. It looks all these little lights going out, killing all the shadows, and it goes to the Shadow King's world, destroying it. It like surrounds the planet. The planet cracked. It kind of almost looks like it's getting sucked into a black hole, like the way it breaks apart and just kind of disappears. And it's like, and it's when you think about it, like from a like top, like a large scale, that's like in that one moment, an entire species was wiped out, you know? And then there was one more soul left, and Charlie was like, okay, I'm ready for it. But Quill saves him at the last second. He's like, what the hell are you doing? All my people were gone. I was supposed to bring them back, but I couldn't. But at least this way I would have been going with them. But Quill's like, no, you have to survive. You know, it's like, because the fact of the matter is, even with everything said as it is, like Charlie, even he couldn't. He kind of brought it up this episode. I was like, even Charlie can't go through with hurting Quill because she's pregnant, because he's not a monster and everything. It's also because like it's like something that brings up to his mind like they are the last of their species, and he can't, like, you know, no matter what it is between him and Quill, it's like he can't hurt her because, you know. And then Mateus is like, oh, I mean, that's part of your kind art and everything, but. Legitimately, I thought in that moment, I was like, wow, you're going to kill off two of your main characters just like that. I was like, you already killed off April, and you're about to kill off Charlie. I was like, I was not expecting. I was like, dude, this is the first season, you're already killing off main characters like that. I was like, whoa, dude. But it's like, luckily, like I said, you know, Quill saved him and everything. And then we end up finding the twist at the end that April is alive, but she's in the Shadow King's body now, which is definitely going to be interesting. Let's not forget that the fact that, well, what does that mean for Charlie too? Because Charlie was the king, but the fact is, if the king is technically alive again, does that make April the king again? Now that she's in his body? Because I was thinking that's what was going to happen. I thought like, okay, you used the one last soul. I thought Charlie was going to do it himself, but use the final soul to kind of bring April back. But it's like, the moment a soul enters the body, it ends up, you know, the person ends up getting reincarnated. At least that's what the legend is like, you know. So it's like, I was thinking like, oh yeah, April's going to come back, but it's not going to be April. It's going to be a Rhodian inside of her body. And like, oh, who, you know, kind of almost her being reborn again. You know, that's what like, oh, they're going to have to get adjusted to her not being April anymore. Looking like April, but not being April. That's what I thought was going to be the case. Maybe it might turn out to be the case later on, but I don't know. Like, what is this whole, like, maybe it's because like Ram was kind of there and it kind of collided, like three different souls. April's this final like Rhodian soul plus like all of that was just too much, maybe. I mean, maybe it also connected to the fact is that there are two hearts there, and that did some, I don't know. Maybe it had something to do with Ram's leg. I have no idea. Something went wrong, and now she's in the Shadowkin's body. And if that's not enough, we end up finding out more about the governors and everything. And lo and behold, who are they working with? Freaking weeping angels. I feel so bad for the headmistress because they were like, "Yep, you're dead. You screwed up big time." It's like because all their calculations were saying that Charlie would never have used the Cabinet of Souls, but the fact of the matter is, it's like that's the thing though. No matter how much you calculate and everything, you cannot calculate the heart. If there's anything Kingdom Hearts has taught me, it's that. I mean, Kingdom Hearts has taught me a lot of things, but that's one big thing. Like the heart is incalculable because, you know, you can crunch these numbers and everything, but you never know how a person's heart, like their shift in their heart, things changing. Being in love with Mateus, caring about April's safety, like wanting to protect this planet that's not even his own. Even if it meant sacrificing his people, because that's what they were banking on. It's like, oh, he never sacrificed all his people, but he did. And now, and then on top of that, now Charlie has to live with that too. I mean, because the thing is too, is like, because I'm sure, like, you know, Charlie was kind of commenting on it before he used the weapon too. It's like, yeah, you should be happy about this, Quill. Like, you want me dead because you didn't like me, and now, you know, the rest of my people were going. So it's kind of like the last middle finger. But the fact of the matter is, when it came time for, she saved him. Maybe it's that baby affecting her or something. I mean, what does that mean going for her too? Because the fact that she's in the stage where the babies will feast on her right now anyway. Apparently, the babies have moved to her second womb. Okay. But that's definitely going to be interesting going forward. But going back to it, the Weeping Angels, if you don't know, I feel like I don't know if I bring this up. I feel like I might have mentioned it in some shape or form, but the Weeping Angels are like my favorite Doctor Who like creatures. Like I've always found them fascinating, ever since they first popped up, at least in this iteration of the series, obviously, like, it was back during season 3. I want to say it was exactly like episode 11 because I remember it was Martha, and because it was an episode where the 10th Doctor and Martha weren't, you know, David Tennant and Martha weren't in the episode a lot. Like they were like recorded, like it was actually side characters who were the main focus of the episode. It's beside the point. That was the first introduction to them. And subsequently, like, I don't think they've popped up since Amy and Rory's exit. I think that was the last time that the Weeping Angels had popped up. Maybe they have popped up more recently, but as I mentioned with when I was talking about Doctor Who, everything prior to season 9, like it's been a while since I've seen, so I'm blocked. My brain's kind of blocked on certain things like that. But at the same time, I was like, oh yeah, because also like the way they operate, the fact is they kill you with time and everything, except for obviously the head mistress, they broke her neck. I was like, oh, they didn't kill her with time. I was like, oh, right. If they're in a weakened state, they can't do it because they need power to send you through time to kill you. And the life that you would have lived, they feast on that time. That's their food. But the fact is that they just snapped her neck means these weeping angels are in a weakened state. That's typically what that means. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like, no, maybe it's just kind of like, no, we don't care anymore. Like, you're no longer needed. So we're not even going to waste time absorbing your time. I mean, don't they actually still get your life force when they kill you like that anyway? I think that's the whole thing. Like, even if they can't send you through time, they still get your life force as some energy. It's probably not nearly as much energy they would get when they time travel you, but nevertheless, they're in the center of this whole situation, like this arrival. So is this about some great, because we don't, like, I mean, at least to my knowledge, once again, I don't know if the Weeping Angels popped up in the original series. I feel like they did. I mean, once again, I've never watched the original series, so maybe back then some storyline about them was apparent, but like, I'm not that familiar with the Weeping Angels, how they came to be, where they're from, and like how they exist and everything. So maybe this will be an opportunity to kind of get a look at their past, at least how I'm feeling about it. So, like I said, they're my favorite, like, creatures in the Doctor Who universe, so I'm super excited to see them pop up again, especially if this storyline means following them as the main focus. It's like that's a tough enemy to beat. I mean, I did appreciate like how it went about, like everyone and that's a part of the Governor's Council kind of just like a whole crap ton of people just turned their backs, and then obviously they had Mistress got killed by the Weeping Angel. But it's like, I mean, how did that become a thing? Like, how are you working with Weeping Angels? Like, I guess it's all for a greater purpose. So maybe the Weeping, like, Weeping Angels making alliances like that? They kind of always been like we do our own thing. Like, we do us. Who cares about you type of thing? So that kind of blows my mind that that's a thing. Now that I think about it, I didn't even think about that till now. Like, Rory and Amy's storyline was the last time that they popped up, but I think that's also because the fact of the matter is, I forgot they played like a prominent role in Amy's and Rory's storyline, because it's like they popped up frequently throughout like seasons 5 and 6, didn't they? At least to my knowledge, they did. Maybe that was specifically just season 5. I don't remember. That might have just been season 5 that they popped up in. But nevertheless, I mean, aside from season 7, when things kind of play out the way they did too there, but. Like I said, a fantastic season finale, like some twists and turns I wasn't expecting, dude. Like I said, they almost got me. Normally you have that belief that like, oh yeah, once you're a main character, you got that plot armor. There's no way. It's like, oh wow, Charlie's about to sacrifice himself. April's dead. I was hoping that, like my mind immediately thought like, okay, Charlie's going to sacrifice himself. And then like at that last moment, like while he's sacrificing himself, he makes sure that April comes back to life. That's what I thought. Maybe she comes back herself, as maybe she comes back as a reborn Rhodian or whatever the case may be, I mean, maybe the fact is the reason why this happened with her situation is because there is no truth to that the Rhodians couldn't be revived, like I said, or maybe there's just complications. Question is, what does it mean going forward, like for April, like being trapped in that body? It's definitely going to be awkward when going to her mom and everything. And does that technically mean that the Shadow King is actually still alive, or is he actually 100% dead, like his soul is in fact gone? But April's, I mean, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, maybe that it is the heart thing, because it's like his soul got burned away when it went that direction towards Ram and them. So maybe it hit his body and burned away his soul, but his and April's hearts are connected. And so maybe her soul was kind of able to transfer over to his body, maybe. So is there going to be a way to get her back into her body? What does this mean going forward? Obviously, Tanya is going to be kind of it seems like they're setting Tanya up to be a badass because her being trained by Quill and everything. Like I said, like, they've been through a lot, but it's like the whole point is to kind of see them go back together. I also thought Mateus was going to die, hands down, because it's like, why? Because he's the love interest. It's like, no, main protagonist. Like, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of a discrepancy with my whole thought that like, oh, if you're, connected to, like, if you're intimate with one of the main protagonists, you're going to end up dead. Obviously that's a little different with April and Ram. I mean, technically that wasn't wrong because it happened, but she's still alive now, so it kind of negates it. But it's a whole thing, so it's definitely gonna be complicated. I'm not 100% sure if the show's gotten renewed for a second season or series. Like prior to it airing here in the U.S., I do know it did okay-ish in the UK. I know that like a lot of people liked it. It just had very low ratings and stuff. That's kind of its biggest problem. So I don't know if that changed, here in the States or not. So, I mean, this is a very, very good show. Like, I highly recommend you trying to get as many people to watch this. Especially, like, I would feel like, why? I mean, maybe that kind of translated over to Torchwood, too. Like, a lot of people watch Doctor Who, but never watch Torchwood or something. I feel like they're connected shows. Like, I guess, to me, it's like, I personally can't watch a show without watching like everything connected to it. If there's a show that's got spin-offs to it, it's like I'm going to watch a spin-off. To be fair though, it took me a while before I watched Torchwood. I think I got completely caught up with Doctor Who before I ended up watching Torchwood, but I'd gotten familiar with it because I think my cousin, I don't remember if she's really into Doctor Who. She was really, really into Torchwood, so I don't remember how that really worked. I completely forgot she was like totally into Torchwood, so meaning she was technically into Doctor Who too. And that's kind of a conversation for itself. So hopefully this show does get renewed because this is a spectacular show. So I really hope more people watch this. So I'm eagerly waiting to see if this comes back or not, because I'd love to see what they do with a second season, especially because once again that tear situation is like, was that specifically because of what went down last episode? Balin, Quill, and the headmistress, or is it something else? I mean, now I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, I brought it up too, the whole Doctor Who storyline, like, there was the crack in Amy's room, that was eventually connected in some shape or form to the, Weeping Angels. Maybe that's what that whole arrival thing is about, because we saw, like, a mural or whatever, so I'm guessing it's, like, the entirety of the Weeping Angel species is finding their way to Earth now because they have a clear-cut way to get here. Like, there's probably those who are already here, who found their way here, but now it's like even more are here now because of those tears that are opening up. They're little tears all over the place. No, I forgot. Those were only small enough for shadows to get through, but maybe the point is to kind of eventually stretch them out or something. I don't know. Because that doesn't seem like that was a part of the governor's plan either. That was just kind of like ugh. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. There's so little we know at this point. We would just kind of, like I said, hopefully it will get renewed and we'll kind of get answers to this like crazy situation. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.